It is 10:05. Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. We're going to call this budget officers budget workshop meeting to order. This is a workshop, so there will not be any decisions made at the workshop. The purpose here is to gather information from the clerk. We had asked the clerk a few weeks back if she would start the process of presenting her budget numbers and findings to the commission. The plan was then over the next couple of weeks that we would meet with the various departments and get their take on what the clerk has given them on their solutions for the problems that the county sees or has. And so today is the first part of that process, and primarily we're letting the clerk drive that. At the end, as time allows, I will allow for public comment. We will have to move our microphone and some things to allow for that, so we'll give you a chance if you have some public comment or statement. It will be timed with this many people available. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add, if you're going to make a public comment, you come up here, you state your name, state if you're from a department, you state the department. If it's the public, state your name, and it's just your city, if you would, please. Thank you.
Okay. All right. With that, we're going to ask the clerk if she would go ahead and start her presentation.
Well, I'm not understanding that's not what the agenda meant. The agenda meant that I come to the commissioners, I'm going to give them their step, number 2 step in the budgeting process. The number 2 step is I have my numbers and I give to the 3 board members. They go through my numbers and they prepare what they want to do in this next budget year. I'm not putting these numbers out for public at this point because they haven't gone through the numbers yet. They have to go through the numbers. Then from there, they make their decisions, they write it down, and they present them back to me, and then I key them in so then we can get a levy rate to the taxpayers. That's what we're doing. The books that I'm presenting today is just preliminary figures. It's got nothing to do with the public at this point. We're not shutting down anything, any department. We're not doing any of that at this point because the 3 commissioners have not even been able to check the figures. So panicking it out into the public is, I'm not understanding this at this point. There's nothing here other than I'm presenting the books to the commissioners. Now they do their due diligence and they go through the figures. That's what they're doing. I got the carryover is what I'm looking at as a budget officer, making sure I got a 25% carryover because we were dinged in our audit off of that. That's what I did on behalf of the commissioners. Now from there, it's up to them to go through the figures. And there's nothing going to be stated at this meeting today.
Do you have a microphone?
Peggy, if you want to come over and use this one, you can.
Is this one on?
I could want me to reiterate what she was saying.
Oh, go ahead.
Would you like a chair?
What the process is Peggy has come up with her version of the budget. And then after she comes up with these figures, we're supposed to go to the departments. And then they go over the budget with us, decide if they need to raise it or lower it. Right now, we haven't even looked at the budget yet. This is the first time I've looked at the budget. So really, we're not at a point to bring in other departments to figure out where we're at.
Does that help? Right now, we're just looking at figures, basically. I got where the county needs their 25% carryover. I added a few things back, and then I gave instructions because the commissioners had not had the experience of what they're going through on a budget. That's what I gave them, a whole list of what they need to be doing from once I presented these figures to them. That's what they're going to be doing in the next. It should take them a day and a half to get a hold of each figure on the funds, and then they will then set up a time for for each department. And then they go through each department. From there, they will make the changes and then give the changes back to me. And then I will make the changes and then we come back to see what the levy rate is. We do not know at any point of this meeting of what's going on. Is that helpful to everyone? That's what I'm doing today. Just giving them a figure and instructions.
Can you explain to us how you came up with the figures that you're presenting?
I sure can. I took from what the departments gave me, and I looked at the history for the last 5 years. And then I arrived, a lot of times I left the department as they were. Does that help?
What departments did you change?
I
Who's
changed quite a few.
talking? Who's asking the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to go ahead and state your name, and you need to ask the commission if you could speak. So go ahead and state your name and state what department you're with or what city you're with.
I put Amy Groves, I'm a citizen. What right do you have to ask what employment that I have?
I'm just asking if you're with a
That's what I'm
department,
saying.
then
It's-
if you're on duty, if you're with a department, then that's what you're
What gives
supposed
you
to
the
say.
right to ask that question?
Because this is the commission, this is a public meeting.
Let me call this back to order. So public questions will be at the end, but Peggy did ask if there were any questions. So I would allow Mr. Groves if he wants to make his question, but it would help if you could state your, what
I
is
state my
your?
name. And I'm a resident.
Okay. Normally we would do our questions at the end, but Peggy did ask if that helped, so she kind of asked a question.
And I'm sorry, I should not have said, does that help?
So,
Sorry.
so let's put the questions at the end for question and answer, like we had originally planned. And let's go ahead with, there's apparently some misunderstanding even on my part on what we were presenting today. I thought we were getting a little more information than this, but let's just get the information that Peggy has, the clerk has for us, and then go from there with questions and answers. So what would you like to share with us today as far as information?
I put the Viva all the way back through on the budgets from last year. I made sure that all the Viva was put back in place. The leases off of the sheriff's office, I'm still waiting on to confirm that figure. There is nothing in there that hasn't been kind of left from last year. I rearranged a few things regarding the appraiser's office. And the appraisers, because of the 25% carryover, I moved a position down into current expense. And then on the district court, it was the same way. I moved one down into current expense because of the liquor apportionments. They were moved out of there prior, and I couldn't figure out why, because you have to take the income versus the expense. So I moved them back to where they should have been and left it. I made notes all the way through off of each fund of what I did so that the board and county commissioners can go through it and see if they agree. But it's their step now to go through the budget, make decisions, and that's kind of where we'll leave it. This is the second step.
Okay, did you have anything else you wanted to share with the public today?
I have none.
Okay. Okay, so I'm at a loss. I thought we were going to actually get into the presentation of the budgets is what I had asked for a couple of weeks ago. So I'm a little uncoordinated with what we just got. Do you have any questions or comments of the clerk?
No, not at this time.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, a couple of weeks back, I provided a plan. I shared that with you in a public meeting that I thought we would have you present your budgets, and then we would give everybody a week so that the departments could take your numbers and give us their responses next week and the week after. How do we get to that point where we can tell the department, in your mind, what's the process where we can tell an individual department that this is what you have and this is what you've got to do or make changes, so they know what they're either cutting or adding? Or
A lot of that decision is not the budget officers. That decision goes back to the board. It's not my place to make those decisions.
So that's what's in your book, is
That's-
that information?
Is that
you guys-
information to make the decisions?
okay,
And that should take you a day to go through, day and a half maybe at the very most, so that you can form your decisions and then you take to each individual department. I mean, I can't form that decision on behalf of the board.
no, I'm not asking you to. I thought you were going to present your recommendations, and I guess you're saying that you have done that in the book.
In the books.
That's what the books
But
are.
that's what the books are, and I can't, I mean, they're just my recommendations. But again, they have to be a decision from the board.
Okay.
It's the same thing that we had last year with Tammy.
Mhm. All right. Do you have anything further you want to add before I open it for public questions? Okay. Do you have anything further,
No, I don't.
Commissioner? Okay. So, I don't know what you're going to ask questions on, since none of you nor we have read through the book we just got presented, but let's go ahead and open it to questions. I'm going to allow for 2 minutes unless we start to run out of time, and then I'm going to have to shorten things up. Keep it polite and friendly. Ask your questions or make your comment, and we'll ask it you, if you want to make a comment, that you come up to the front where the microphone is going to be. If you'll just come up here by the weird gate thing, which I guess that's more of a security thing today. So if you'll come up by the gate, state your name, who you're representing, or or if you're a citizen, where you're from, and then are you adjusting? Yeah. So we'll have a microphone. So everybody in the room can hear you. And let's keep it professional and polite, or I'll have to call you out of order and move on to somebody else. Questions from the audience, or comments. Doesn't have to be a question if you just want to share your thought. As soon as I said they had to come up to the front, we killed that. Okay, if we move the microphone to the back of the room, would anybody have a comment or a question? We have some folks coming up. Okay, come on up, man. State your name.
Hello, my name is Siobhan Curette, and I'm just going to break the ice. I want to thank you all for all the hard work you're putting into this. I know that everyone involved in these decision-making processes has a ton of weight on their shoulders. And I think it's really important that everyone remember that everyone has the best interests of our citizens at heart here, and that everyone is doing the best they can with the information they have available to make these decisions for our community. So thank you guys for your work. That's what I have to say.
Thank you for breaking the ice. Neighbor, come on up, Hal.
My name is Hal Brunner. I'm from the Pinehurst area. The one comment I wanted to make was I have gotten my appraisal on my house. It seemed to have better than doubled. And I have some concerns about the process they're going through to assign a value to the homes. For some people, that's, if they're seeing the same kind of numbers I have, that I'm seeing, it's going to be a hardship on a lot of the people that live here in Shoshone County. And thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Hal. Questions relating to the budget or the process, or, okay, we've got Steve coming up.
Greetings, my lords. My name is Steve Warner. I live in Osford, Idaho. I'm just wanting to check my understanding, make sure I'm not confused. there's a lot of misinformation on the internet concerning this budget process. And am I correct in that if there are budget cuts, that they're not targeted strictly at the sheriff's office?
Well, I'll give you my opinion, absolutely not. If we're short on money, which is what we believe from last year's clerk's report, then it will be a county-wide issue. But now I've got to go through, we have to go through what the budget officer just presented, but no, nothing would be targeted at any specific department. It would be a general county-wide shortage of funds.
So this is not any sort of attempt at defunding the police or sheriff's department then?
Not on my part, absolutely not. That would be the last place I would want to go.
And I don't think this is a defunding matter. The problem is we have a justice fund and we have a current expense fund. And last year, when it was split, we're short on the justice fund. And that's the way the dice is rolled. And so we're trying to figure out how much we're short and how we're gonna deal with it. We just can't obligate transfer funds from one department to the other. Just like the transfer station. We were looking at changing, looking for more revenue, but the transfer station is its own entity. And so each department, like the transfer station, we can't touch that money. The roads department, we can't touch that money. It all stays within that department. Now we come to the general fund, it's the same thing. And then now we have a justice fund. They're gonna be taxed. Justice fund will get its own, will have its own tax revenue. And the general fund will also, so that's why that was changed out. So that's the problems we have right now that we're trying to deal with and figure out where we're gonna go from here.
Well, thank you for that, Commissioner Norman. I wasn't aware of separate funds for Justice Department. Excellent. Well, very good news, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Douglas Thurber, live in Burke, Idaho. I'm just a peaceful observer to this proceeding, but I would ask as it goes forward that all of the people that work for the citizens coordinate with one another, because I seem to have seen contention between the left side and the right side of the bench here this morning, and I ask that you all work together to make a good result for the citizens. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure which side's left and right, but no, we are on one team.
Depends how you figure.
Anybody else with a comment or a question? Okay, yes, Captain.
Captain Green, the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office. Just to clarify, you said that it's not your place to make decisions, but it is to make recommendations, correct? So with the recommendation that was just made, does that include cuts in that book, because we can't see it, cuts to the Sheriff's Office? And then does it also make leniency for the $600,000 that is now going to be paid by the state to the defense fund? Is that now not going to be part of the budget? I get it, for those people here who know it's a different funds, it can get confusing, but my understanding is that money can stay in there. So what was the recommendation?
That's not the way it's done. I gave them a recommendation. I used your guys' figures. I either overdraft it or I left you in the black on each fund. It's, again, not my decision.
So I guess my question is, in the recommendation, is there to be playing cuts to the sheriff's office or not cuts to the sheriff's office in the recommendation before the
Again,
commissioners?
I don't make that
So she
decision. I
didn't recommend cuts. She went with last year's, and with what you guys presented. to her. Those are the numbers she used, and then what she does is she researches those and says, okay, yes, I can verify that this income is correct, and I can verify that this expense is correct. So then she takes those and she puts them together. She's not cutting anything, she's not adding anything, she's just literally taking the numbers that she has, that she can verify, and she's putting them on paper. And she's presenting that to the commissioners for them to go through and say, okay, here's our bottom line, we're either under or over, how do we fix it?
That's what their decision processing, it isn't mine as a budget officer.
This is the same process we went through last year. What happens is we come together as a board and then we invite each department over and we go through their budget line by line. And at that time, that's when we have our conversations with the elected officials or the department heads on where we're going.
Thank you, Ken. Sheriff?
Holly Lindsay, Sheriff. Just a comment on the process last year. This process has been completely different than last year. Last year, we had an opportunity to work with the clerk to determine what we could work with on our budget, what we could give up, what we could need more of. We did a lot of back and forth, several meetings before we even came before the board to discuss that. So I just want to point out it's not been the same process.
I'll answer that question. It's up to the clerk. And last year, Tammy did go through everybody's budget with them. And, this year, I think it's up to the clerk and how they move forward. But you'll now have, you'll get the same thing. We'll be able to come in as a department and go through the budget together.
Okay, anything further?
Damien Gross, resident of Keller. The strife that I've seen on a bunch of your meetings is that the clerk had made it fairly evident that her number one cut that she wants to do is the wages. She's come up with a plan to change the wages. So my question is, did any of this get changed? Did you recommend any cuts to any wages at all?
I did not make any cuts to any wages. I am not in that position to do that. I present the numbers, the income versus the expense. It's up to the board. It's not up to the clerk.
Well,
Somewhere along the line, you guys have thought it was up to the clerk. It's never been to the clerk. I did change the process a little. I just got my figures this week from a department. That's how close it's been trying to get these figures together. You wait on them, you ask for the stuff, they're not recognizing what you're looking for. What I'm trying to do as a clerk is to establish a point of where the wages are at this time of the budget year. Now, if there's any projections of ranks or files or increases to a position, that has to be budgeted by that individual department so it can go into the budget for next year. I'm not doing that. That belongs to the departments. But trying to get them to understand it has to be done a year ahead of time. You have to think ahead of time of what that position or any position is going to be so that we have the figures in there. So then it can be tracked throughout the year.
So my understanding is that you just got the figures to complete.
On some of them, yes.
Okay, for the last several months, every time that you came up before, you've griped about the wages. You said the wages are wrong, you need to change the wages. So were you going off the facts or were you just going off of your opinion?
I don't believe that the metric systems were set correctly.
That's what I'm saying. So you weren't going off of the numbers and you just, in your opinion, believe that the wages that were set, that were approved by the county commissioners were wrong. So then every time that you came up before us, before this entire group, you said that the wages have been wrong, the wages need to be changed. So did you change anything in here?
I did not say.
I didn't say you changed. I'm saying you recommended every time to the county commissioners to change it.
I think you're wrong, but.
That's what, it's been on every video.
Well,
You didn't have the budget correct last year. When you didn't have it
I
last year.
wasn't here last year,
Oh,
sir.
I'm just saying the clerk's
Sir, I
office,
was not
the
here
clerk's
last year.
office had it wrong last year.
I can't answer, I don't believe that. the
So if you
numbers-
just got the numbers done, then you weren't going off the numbers.
Let's just try to bring it down a notch. Continue your questions, but let's try and be civil.
Well, that being so. My apologies then.
I appreciate it. Did you have another question for her? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That'll be.
Okay. No, we got a lot of emotion in the room. I know there's been a lot of misinformation, communication. We do have a new clerk this year from last year. There have been lots of confusion in this county. Our last clerk told us that we were short 1 point some million that we've been trying to work on. Our audits this year and our current clerk are saying that things might not be that bad. So there's been a lot of cross messaging, but it's I can't say it's nobody's fault, but I don't know that it's anybody's fault sitting in the room right now. Mr. Beener, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Matt Beener, Wallace. There's a code on how this process works. A good reference point to look at is Idaho Association of Counties, the budget process. Last year, it wasn't followed. Our clerk actually had her numbers in on the budget worksheets within 2 days after they were turned in. It wasn't followed. So just so everybody knows, there is a process to go online, look it up, and you'll see how the process works. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Final chance for an opportunity. Here we go. We got one here, and then Josh, you're up next.
Deputy Mayor Shoshone County. So it was already admitted that the process was changed for the budgeting year. With this workshop, from my understanding, it was also supposed to be presented to the public about the estimations for the budget this year. Why are we not presenting the estimates for the budget for the upcoming year when that was explained? And from your understanding as well, it was explained in the last meeting. We were expecting that. So my question is, why are the estimates not presented through the court clerk's or
By
through the
Idaho
clerk's
code,
office?
it's the first Monday of August. And I've been here trying to teach what the process is. I don't know how this got exploded out of proportion of what I was doing today. I don't understand how that got.
So it was based off of the last commissioner meeting I was supposed to go online, that the budget was supposed to be presented in a budget workshop with the estimations. For
But
the
again, that, it will be presented by August, but I'm giving these figures to them so they can overlook them. Then it is presented to the public. Right now, I don't know how this got so exploded out of proportion. I'm sitting there going, I just came in down to figure to give these books so they can go through and make their decisions. It's not my place to make decisions on behalf of the board. Sorry, it's not.
But that's not what I was asking. I was
But-
asking
but
because
the
your
pro-
office presents an estimate, correct?
The estimate, but it, on the agenda, maybe it should have been defined more than.
Yeah, because from my
it is-
understanding, the estimate for the budget, for the county budget,
Yeah.
for all the firms, not just including.
This is just figures so they can go through them. It's not something that should be presented to the public at this point because they haven't made their decisions.
They haven't even looked at it.
They haven't
That's what
even
she's saying.
looked at
So
it.
it
I
can't be
was just-
presented until they can answer
This
questions.
was supposed to
after they
be
look at it.
just step 2, so that I give them the books, explain what I did within each book, each fund, then they look at it, and then they start the process of forming a decision of what can happen through this next budget year. That's the process.
And it's just admitted that it was changed, the process was changed. So that's I guess, along with my
Process was
curiosity.
never changed. The process got somewhere along the line through the years from when I left, when I was here 16 years ago. Somewhere along that line, when I left, retired, and then came back this year to help out, it had gotten changed. And I'm trying to put it back together so that they have a consistent way to go forward on. And it's gotten out of steps, so to speak. And because it's a public meeting, it should have been, maybe I should have just met with the commissioners separately and but I was just trying to go so that they could go, get them all three of them at once to go through the book. So that if they had any questions, they could look at it and then form an opinion. Right now, they have not had a chance to go through the figures I presented to them to form an opinion. They have to go through, get this in understanding of what's going on financially in the county. And to try to get that explained, you're out of the process. It's nothing to the public at this point.
I think part of the problem is if we were to go through the budgets right now, it would probably take the whole day. Because when we go through the budgets with the elected officials, we go line by line. And I don't see where we would go line by line today. It's my understanding that the budget proposals that the elected officials proposed are in here.
Yes.
And that's theirs. So you guys would have your, whatever budget proposals that you came up with should be the same as what we're getting here. And then when we go to meet with the sheriff or the roads department, the commissioners go line by line with that department. So really, she's just copied down what you guys have given her.
Thank you very much. Sheriff?
Sheriff Lindsay, so I guess where I'm confused is, we had a meeting, Peggy, and you don't make the financial decisions, and I'm very aware of that. And I'm aware that your process may be different than previous clerks. I just felt that there's been a lack of communication. You met with us, you met with myself and then Sheriff Studsky, and pretty much told me I need to cut $526,000 from our justice fund, and kind of left it at that. And so we've been kind of wondering what we need to do, and I've tried to communicate with you to figure out, well, what do we need to do to work on these numbers, and you have not communicated that with us whatsoever.
Your department, we tried to get a base off of the wages for quite a while with your side, so that we had a starting point. We just got it this week.
You just asked for it this week. I just
Okay.
asked her for that total number. this
Total
week.
number, but we still have rank and files and different things that were taken into account. What was projected, was given to us this morning. So, and your figures, what we're trying to tie down is all the leases. We were trying to tie down, it wasn't just your department. There's a lot of departments that we're trying to tie down and have backup in order to present to the commissioners.
Yeah, I understand that. I think that the meeting that you had with us, telling us that we need to cut $526,000 was a little premature, considering
Well,
the numbers would still
you
have.
asked me what should, I said, this probably is your income versus your expenses. And that's what I said, that's what you need to be looking at, your income versus your expenses. And that's how I left it.
I didn't ask, you met to us, you had a meeting with us in the commissioner's office. You
Right.
told us that,
Well, I
with
said.
no other information to
I
support
said-
and no other communications with the commissioners.
Well, no, I had said, this was your income from the last year, this was your expenses. Your income versus your expenses don't balance. And that's what I said, you've gotta get them down to where they balance.
But how do we get them down without numbers? So when we'd ask you for numbers to try and work on this, you would, we had to put a public information request in to get some numbers from you because you wouldn't give them to us. So it's been frustrating, that's
Well,
why,
it is
that's why I
frustrating
did
because
involve
some
the
of the
public.
carryover that, the one on the public request, they said, go back 5 years, 6 years for carryover. Well, what are you talking about carryover? It was your income versus your expenses. And once they came over and they asked me what it was, and I got to understand what they were asking for, it was a real simple process.
I
It was
agree.
them coming over to me and asking me, so I understood what they were looking for.
I agree that would
There's
be
some
the easier thing,
communication.
but you just told us no, and then we had to put a public information request. Just want to make a comment, this budgeting process has been very difficult due to the lack of communication, and I feel like the lack of cooperation from your office. To me, you've been very cooperative, and I do appreciate that. But that's why I'm here, that's why these people are here today, so I just wanna make that comment.
Well,
Thank you.
Kelly, you can come over anytime and we can go through it line by line. But you haven't come over.
I think one of the biggest problems we have is last year we had a big deficit that we thought we had. And luckily, that deficit has kind of went away. You know, we just got back a draft audit from our, it wasn't an audit, it was an income review. And, you know, we're looking really good countywide, except for the justice fund, we're off some, but we're gonna have to work on that. But that, you know, we've been left with this. This wasn't your fault. It wasn't Peggy's fault. It wasn't our fault. This is something we inherited. So the only way we're gonna get past this is work through it together. And this next step of going through the budget process and being able to meet face to face with the departments and go line by line, that's gonna help us.
Okay, I'm sorry, Josh, you were next.
Oh, can I speak from here? Is that okay?
If everybody can hear you.
You guys hear me? Are those documents, like, just, I don't know, it's been clearly stated, are those public? Can we request the documents that Peggy gave to you guys? The recommendations, are those public documents? Okay, good. And then should we anticipate that by Monday, you guys will do this again? And you guys will be able to present the information within them?
Actually, Heather, what day are we working on?
On the 8th and the 9th, we're meeting with department heads and elected
We're
officials.
starting on the 8th and 9th meeting with the department heads to go over these.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, officer?
John Rhoda, Shoshone County Sheriff's Department. I don't believe this was blown out of proportion. What I see here is a lack of communication. What I do see here is a whole group of people who are supporting the Sheriff's Department and don't want cuts, period. Because of the crap that we're getting through this valley, thanks to the 90. So that's what I said. I don't see it blown out of proportion. I see what I see is a lot of community support instead of, thanks.
Thank you. Anything further? Oh, I'm sorry. We got one.
You were waiting for me.
Jan Higdon, Pinehurst. I'm one of most of the taxpayers that are going to see an increase in our taxes this year. I run the house budget and I try to keep it in the black. And I know you do the same. And so I'm hoping, I know that you will judiciously consider increases in budget that will affect taxes and things like that. Would be wages or whatever, but you know, I can't do it at my house. So that's all.
Thank you, Jan.
Anna Berger, resident. I think just for some clarification purposes, when will you start presenting numbers to the public? Like, I understand you just got your packet today, and I think people would like to hear just rough numbers, even though they're fluid, but at what point in the meetings will you start presenting those numbers to the public?
Well, I thought we were starting today, so I may be off, but it would appear that next week on the 8th and 9th, when we start those workshops, we'll be publicly discussing these numbers. Is that correct, Peggy? With the clerk and with the department heads.
And is that what you'll tell the public, kind of your rough numbers, or you'll have more definitive numbers?
Well, they're still going to be rough until the final approval, but at least people would hear actual numbers.
And because you haven't had a chance to look at them, you're not even kind of willing just to present rough, like where the county stands as of now before any more workshops?
Well, I'm not sure what you're asking. The county is not in that thing. It's not in the 1.7 million that was predicted last year. We're not there.
Yeah, I understand that. I just think, I feel like the tension that people are kind of getting around, I think if you just gave some people some numbers of, we all understand the rough, they're fluid, that might people might understand where you're coming from, but I understand that you just got that binder. I've gone through that process before, not on that larger scale, but sometimes information does thin people down. So next Monday is when you'll start presenting workshopping numbers.
The end of next week.
The 8th
Yeah.
and 8th and 9th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further before I close this with final comments from elected?
Would you have a problem putting that online?
Putting what on?
The books that you guys got?
I don't think we do that.
Can we do that?
I don't think we can. Can we do that?
Let us discuss that with our prosecuting attorney, see what we can figure out here. Okay. Okay, clerk, any final comments you'd like to make? Okay.
Well, the only thing that, they asked what I had predicted. And I just kind of left the levies the way they were last year. And I did some changes, but I was still within the levy rate that we had put out last year. If that would be something that you guys wanted to be knowing about. I gave them pretty much the same levy rate, and I worked from the numbers into the budgets that way. If that helps.
Okay. Anything further, Commissioner? No. All right, well, I'm going to apologize. At this time, I thought we would have more information that we could share publicly than we do. There's been a little disconnect there, but I do appreciate everything that the clerk is doing to get us on track. It sounds like, last year we were told by the clerk's office that we were probably 1.7 in the hole. It sounds like from our audits and from what I'm hearing the clerk say that we are not in that bad of a shape. So that's a good message. That's good information. But until we go through these books, I still don't know where we are. I think the most useful thing will be our next week when we start meeting with the departments and going through specifics. So if the department chair heads or elected that are out there, if you need any information to get prepared for next week, please come see us and we'll make sure you have it so that we can get this process rolling. It's already rolling. If we can keep it rolling a little bit faster. Okay.
And for each department, once they go through, now that it's presented, now then from that step, I will give to each one of you guys, that when you come in, you will have that portion. So Holly, you will have your information, but they have to be presented to us first.
I understand. When you told us that we need to start figuring out how to cut $526,000, it kind of puts a little panic in me to get some numbers, and the lack of communication with your office is just really made it difficult.
And lack of communication between both offices, I would suggest, maybe.
I would not, but we'll just leave
Understand
it as it
the
is.
process.
Thank you very much, everybody. With that, we are adjourned.